Welcome to the Teachers Pep Rally. If you missed our last episode with Candace Chung, the Director of Partnerships and Programs at the STED School in Colorado, please go back and check it out. Our guests, notice the plural, today have over 25 years of experience in education. One has worked as a school counselor and is a former public charter school principal, and the other was an elementary school teacher with expertise in creating makerspaces. Both have a passion for supporting high levels of student achievement, preparing students for the workplace of the 21st century, and for encouraging imagination. We love it. Please welcome to the Teachers Pep Rally our guests who work both in workforce development for Garner Holt Education Through Imagination. We've got Bill Tynan, the Director of Higher Education, and Sarah Emerson, the Director of Secondary Education. Welcome to the Teachers Pep Rally.
Thank you.
Oh, that was a lot. You all have some experience you're bringing to the table, and we are so excited to have you.
We're really excited to be here.
Good. All right, so let's just right away. I mentioned Garner Holt's Education Through Imagination. Bill and Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about the mission and vision of this group?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see. The vision and mission of Garner Holt Education is to use the vehicle of animatronics and the whole design production process to help kids get really excited about STEAM learning and to actually explore careers on a deeper and more authentic level. And really what we mean there is helping students develop hands-on technical skills, helping students really engage with some of those 21st century competencies that we know are so important, regardless of the industry that a student may go into. And I think underscoring it all is really this idea that animatronics are this kind of portal into, places of imagination and creativity and questions of not if something could be done, but instead how and what can we do to make it happen. And so it's really with that as its foundation that Education Through Imagination was born a little over 4 years ago. And our goal is to reach students at both the local and national levels, really, and to use animatronics, as I said, as as this great kind of starting point for really thinking about how anything can be created that we can imagine.
I love that. And Sarah, so a lot of us at TPR are Disney fanatics. So when we hear the word animatronics, we get really excited. Sarah, do you want to, just for our listener who maybe doesn't know what an animatronic is, can you kind of give us a little bit of description for us?
Or the host, or a host.
Or for Letitia.
Yeah, so animatronics are those lifelike moving figures that you see on a theme park attraction. For example, you might see moving pirates on a Pirates of the Caribbean ride, or you might see miners digging for gold in a Calico mine ride, perhaps. And so really, any character that can come to life in the form of a moving robotic figure is an animatronic. And so animatronics are really robots. And so what we do to explain the difference between robots and animatronics to kids is that robots are designed to do work for us, and animatronics are special types of robots that are designed to entertain, educate, or inform. So they're robots with a different purpose.
Yeah, that's a really good explanation.
Cool.
And I'm sitting here thinking, Pete, make a note when our budget gets bigger, TPR animatronics.
How much would a Fred animatronic?
Yeah, how much would it be to
Just
get
thinking.
Fred to be?
Just from the chest up you need. That's all you really need. So it's all good.
You get the TPR discount.
Thank you.
Oh,
About time. First day.
we've been waiting for that to happen. Thank you, Bill. You're our new favorite guest.
New favorite people.
Well, one of the things that I kind of made a note of, I know a little bit about Garner Holt and that history, and his name is in the title, right? Do you mind also telling us a little bit of a history of why animatronics and robotics, why is that associated with his name?
Okay, I think Bill's nodding to me. Okay.
You're on, Sarah.
So So yeah, Garner Holt is a real person. He's a man who grew up locally to us here in Redlands. He grew up in San Bernardino, California. And as a child in middle school, he was fascinated by animatronics. And he pursued that passion, and he had a lot of support in that. His family supported him. His teachers supported him, actually, which was quite unheard of for the time, really, in the mid 70s. To basically, he went around to all of his teachers and said, hey, I'm building an animatronic. Can I work on this part in my writing class? Can I work on this in my drafting class? And the whole school kind of rallied behind him, and he built an animatronic. He also built haunted houses. That's how he funded his endeavors into animatronics, as he built haunted houses and charged money to get into them. Eventually, he knew that this is what he wanted to do for his life's work. And so he tested out of high school at age 16 and founded Garner Holt Productions. At the age of 16 years old, he started his company, and he's been building animatronics ever since. It was a struggle for him, probably the first 10 years or so. And then he got a big break through a big mouse, Chuck E. Cheese. And so, yeah, Garner was able to, and his company was able to design over 500 Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, and that really enabled his company to expand and grow. And now we are the largest manufacturer of theme park animatronics in the world. We have theme park animatronics on every country in every continent other than Antarctica, and over thousands and thousands of animatronics that we have all over the world. And so Garner chose to keep his company here, and his story is very inspirational and ties into the world of education. And so education has been something that he's very passionate about, as having his legacy with the company. And so education through imagination kind of came out of that. He was very interested in the work of some local schools that were working in makerspaces, one of which was the school that I started out at in a makerspace. And so he actually came by to see our makerspace and said, what? This is a miniature Garner Holt Productions, and you have 5-year-olds doing the same stuff that my kids are, or that my adults are doing here. And so he adopted the school, and eventually a team of people from that school, including our president of Education Through Imagination, reached out to Garner and said, hey, what we're doing here, we can do for a lot more kids and a lot more students if we partner up together. So that's how Education Through Imagination was born, was really Garner being having a desire to be a part of the community and get connected back to education, and seeing how all the things that helped him out, he could influence, he could help bring more maker spaces into this world. And so that's really a lot of the work that we do at Education Through Imagination, is build world-class learning environments in the form of our own branded makerspace, the Animakerspace.
That's really cool. Can I ask you real quick, when you said the time frame for him to come back and he saw your makerspace, what year are we talking about roughly, without giving away any age issues or anything?
Yeah, he visited our makerspace in 2015. Oh yeah, he visited our makerspace in 2015. 2015,
because that's so I'm in that kind of this coding STEM space too. I'm at the university level and I do summer camp kids. We've been doing coding forever, and it is clear to me to see that there's an unevenness in how we're rolling out STEM and STEAM, or whatever we're going to call it these days, across the country. So is that what you were seeing from the West Coast side? Are you seeing it being done unevenly also? And that's what really kind of pushes you to get this out there further?
Bill,
maybe I'll just quickly speak to that, Fred. What we encounter with a lot of different educators that we work with and that we engage with is that there are a lot of different ideas out there about what STEAM learning looks like, and about what maker education looks like, and what a makerspace looks like. And we try not to, tell people what they're doing is not right, or that they ought to, consider a different route necessarily, but rather to bring a lot of intention to the work. And so, for example, I think I would reference, our makerspace, which includes a variety of advanced manufacturing, digital fabrication equipment, and something that we encounter, and this is something I think Sarah may be able to speak to as well. We encounter a lot of educators really excited about integrating technology into the curriculum, really excited about hands-on project-based work. But they don't really have a strong why behind the reasons we would bring advanced manufacturing equipment onto a campus. And so maybe put quite simply, it's not uncommon for us to meet educators who are having a ton of fun working with their students, 3D printing small objects, whether they're little teddy bears or something from Minecraft. They're having a great time. But when you talk to the students about why you might bring in digital fabrication capabilities and what benefit that can bring to learning or to the project they might be working on, they struggle a little bit with that answer, because there isn't always that intention behind it. And so again, with animatronics, there's just such a beautiful vehicle for talking to students about why those different pieces of equipment or technology are important and how they can be used to achieve their goals.
That's a great point to make, though, because I came from the era of the 1980s and, well, let's say late 80s for computer science. And I just had this conversation with my students just this past week when I was talking about how we're going to have a studio course and we're going to build stuff, because when I was learning how to code, how to program, everything was in such fragmented, disjointed pieces. I really never saw the big piece as an undergrad in computer science. Everything was just like, oh, this is going to sort something. I don't know what it's going to sort, but it's going to sort something. And this is going to do this. And we really never saw that until I came back into teaching. We started to see a more integrative approach. And I love hearing what you just said, because that I could easily see where teachers who don't have maybe a technical background, who want to adopt this they become the custodian for the makerspace, really don't know how to pull that big piece together. But if you're assisting with that, that's such a huge win. That's a huge win.
Well, and the assisting, Fred, is absolutely the part of our work that Sarah is so involved in and designs and facilitates, and it's that PD portion that really brings the work to life. And so, so sometimes we'll use the analogy that developing an animaker space, which is again our unique take on the makerspace, developing the space is sometimes like a wedding. It's a lot of planning and a lot of time and a lot of anticipation and enthusiasm and the endless possibilities for what can be done. And then there's a grand opening, and it's a beautiful moment in time, but it's what happens in the makerspace after that day that really matters. That's much more like the marriage. And so that's where the PD and training, really come into play. And we have a lot of fun helping educators really at any level. I think we see this particularly at elementary, but it's our objective to really push it at all levels of education. Educators coming in and learning how they can incorporate technology into English language arts instruction, and how they can incorporate technology into social science instruction, so on and so forth. And so for us, what that really speaks to is engagement. And this question of how can we help students really feel engaged by what they're doing and connected and wanting more. And, the ripple effects with engagement, as you all know, go far and wide, including, reducing absenteeism. And so, just as sports, for example, have been saving kids' lives for so long, we believe the same is true for this kind of learning.
Well said. It's nice.
Yeah, the ELA teacher in me is like nerding out, because I'm like just thinking about, okay, so if we had a makerspace and they were doing the animatronics, I would love to assist in helping them write the instructions. Like, first of all, how to put this together, like how they did it, the process, but then also how to operate it. That would be really, really cool.
Well, and don't forget, Aaron, too, the importance of script writing. And so, how can we're all accustomed to demonstrating our learning by writing a 5-paragraph essay, but how can we demonstrate our learning by writing a script, which then requires a voice actor? And how can that script really tell the story of what the student learned?
Yeah, you're right, because it can become a character, right? So they've got to kind of think about who's this character, what's their purpose, what's their backstory. Ooh.
Yeah, and additionally, they're using technology such as lighting to connect to this idea of mood and tone of a story. And so not only are they thinking about things that are going to enhance their learning of literature, but now they're using these technologies that are used in creative industries. They're using DMX lighting control and GarageBand and Audacity to mix files and create audio files and lighting effects to enhance their stories.
Wow. And now I'm thinking about Pete, who's our performing arts guy.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Right. And I would go to him and say, hey, can you help the kids out with, thinking about, right, like you just said, the mood, the tone, and how the light, how it shines on certain parts of the animatronic to give some kind of emotion, right? Or to make it seem more dramatic. This is exciting. So I'm wondering, can we peel back just a little bit? If we think about the makerspace and someone comes in it, like Sarah, I heard you didn't forget this. You said 5-year-olds were doing this, right? Okay. So yes. Sarah, tell me a little bit more of the beginning stage of like how you kind of start to get the basics going for kids. Because the teachers, it sounds like, are going to get amazing PD out of this, right? But how do the kids get started in this whole part of this process?
Yeah, so makerspaces actually they're great for early elementary education because students are learning how to use their bodies, and what better way to do that than to put some tools in their hands and have them work with tools and learn how tools are technologies, and then tie that into digital technologies that can emulate those tools. And so there's a mixture of hands-on learning with tools, things like screwdrivers and jigsaws. Yes, even jigsaws with 5-year-olds. When you plan it correctly, you can do it. You have you think about all the support you're going to need, all the safety that you're going to do, and then you talk to kids about big hurts and little hurts, and you trust them because they should be trusted. And once you trust them, it builds really great relationships for learning. And so there's those actual hands-on tools that I think are really important to put in the hands of young children. And then you relate it to the digital tools. You get them into Tinkercad. Tinkercad is something that a 4-year-old can intuitively begin to build with shapes. And these are the shapes that are part of the content standards for kindergarten anyway. They're learning about rectangular prisms and cones. And now they have access to digital ones on a free web-based platform. And they can start to build things with those blocks of shapes. Eventually that leads to being able to build with more sophisticated software. Such as SolidWorks, which is what the industry professionals use. And so, that we just scaffold it down. We actually start with those CTE standards. We look at what pathway students are doing, and then we translate that all the way down to what 5-year-olds are supposed to be doing. And we find those connections, and I help the educators find those connections and build lesson plans around those connections.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is fascinating.
That was, I was going to ask you. So like, you're also speaking directly from California, right? So California, in your observations across the country, have you seen more states become better aligned with those standards? Because I think there's still a lot of work to be done at that state level, right? In this area, not everybody's, once again, I hate to say it, even, or, trying to tell them what to do, but are you finding that's becoming, better across the country?
I'm not sure if I can speak to that so much as, we do some work outside of California, but we haven't done much yet.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
We got to get you to come over on the East Coast.
Yeah.
We got to get you to come over.
We have a S.P.A.R.K.E that made it to South Carolina this year.
Oh, that's cool.
And so,
S.P.A.R.K.E?
Spark. Oh, so S.P.A.R.K.E is the name of our animatronic for education that is in our animaker spaces. It stands for Specialized Programmable Animatronic and Robotic Kit for Education. He is an amazing 3-year-old sized animatronic that can be fully programmed, costumed, and created into shows by students.
That's awesome. There
Good old
you go,
Sparky.
Steve or Pete. That solves your whole cast issue.
I
You have a
wonder,
bunch
if
of Sparkies.
I wonder if Sparky's friends with Clippy, which we've mentioned a couple times from the old Microsoft Word. I think they're friends. In my world, they're going to be friends.
Fred, to your question about our interactions and connections with educators out of state, I think as we have developed the business and begun to market beyond the Southern California region, I mean, I think what we have really experienced is a strong enthusiasm for STEAM learning.
Yep.
Through this lens of animatronics. It's something that I think a lot of people really connect to. Their love of theme parks, their love of Disney. It's something that kind of sweeps you away when you think about it. Helps you go to a place where you feel a little bit more free to create, free to dream a little bit, and so that level of enthusiasm is really starting to show itself. And really the big questions that we get are how do we get started, and the best question, what does this look like? What does it look like? And so that's a big part of what we're doing these days, is having those conversations with educators outside the Southern California region.
Yeah, it's good. Keep on that tail, because there's a lot of great work to be done. And I think you're right. It adds another layer. So we talk about robotics and coding. The animatronics thing, though, is different because of everything you're talking about. That's the art side, really. And that's something that's beautiful to see, the creativity with the technology, right? So you get that nice integrative arts, combination, and really speaking from the software side, coding is creative. It could look really boring, maybe, because it's just 2D text there, maybe, but ultimately it has a real creative element. But now all of a sudden you're adding that other piece that really does make it super creative. I think for a young person to see that, boy, that opens up their minds to so much. That's cool.
Well, and a big part of what we do here through our experiential learning programs are field trips in person, which is slowly coming back online, of course, as we, knock on wood, finally make our way through this pandemic. And also virtual experiences. And a big part of what we're trying to do with those experiences with students is at least a couple of things. One is redefine or help students and educators redefine what they think about things like manufacturing, what they think about things like coding, and to kind of turn some of those perceptions on their head, and to show that no, there's quite a lot of creativity and problem solving and collaboration that takes place in welding and CNC machining, career fields that don't necessarily get a whole lot of positive attention in schools. And so we like to geek out on advanced manufacturing and really promote it as something students ought to consider, and for really good reason, because we know there's a huge skills gap that exists really across the country when it comes to manufacturing. And so highlighting the creativity and career fields that don't necessarily get their due is something we really enjoy. Secondly, coming into our building, one of the most fascinating aspects of doing that is watching these different people collaborate in very unusual or unexpected ways. You wouldn't necessarily expect a costumer to be collaborating with an electronics technician, or you might not expect a carpenter to be collaborating with a dimensional designer. But it really is in these collaborations between different people and different departments that get the work done. And so, that costumer, in order to develop a costume that will move properly and, won't get caught in the gears, that person has to understand, the responsibilities of somebody else. And
Yeah.
And so, we really enjoy highlighting that aspect of 21st century practice.
That's cool. That's neat.
This is awesome. So I'm going to stop saying it's awesome. But first off, I want to thank you all for sharing your space today with us. I believe that love is in the details. So when I went to your website and I saw people that looked like me, both as a person of color and gender, I was very, very excited because it spoke to me. So I thought about the students or even educators that be checking out your site. So that's my mushy part. The other part is equity, equity, equity. How are you all ensuring that this brilliant work is being shared and in the hands of Black and Brown children or people in poverty?
Absolutely. Sarah, do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I can mention one thing, which is our Garner Holt Foundation. And so we have a nonprofit version of our company, and it's the Garner Holt Foundation. And so the idea of our Garner Holt Foundation, the idea of the Garner Holt Foundation is that we have the opportunity to have community-based everything that the for-profit side of our company is able to develop as far as makerspaces and experiences for students and educators. We want to be available to the community, and that would be through our Garner Holt Foundation. For all of the people that don't go to a school, lucky enough to have the right people advocating to have our experiences and our spaces in their school, we're building our foundation to be able to have these community-based spaces, community maker spaces, where anyone in the community can come together to learn and make things together. So that's the goal of our foundation.
Excellent.
And I think, Letitia, just to add on to that, I would say it's really it's really through the relationships that we build and through the sharing of what this work looks like, sharing what the opportunities on campus can be, and also sharing what for us is a real kind of compass, directional compass for us. And that's the research of the research of the Gallup group. And the Gallup group in their annual student poll, which you may be familiar with, measures in their words those things that matter most for student success. And they've over the course of many years and many thousands of participants have determined that it really comes down to 4 factors. One is hope, which in this case means students' perception of their future, which Gallup has determined to be more important. The perception of the future is the more that perception is very, very important. Second factor, engagement. Third factor, entrepreneurial aspiration. And fourth factor, financial and career literacy. And so, as we are engaging with school partners, sharing that research, helping them know that, hey, this is really what guides our work, is a strategy that we have found successful in helping administrators and educators understand, hey, this is one way to bring greater equity to the learning on your campus.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Oh, I said it again.
You said it again.
I did it again.
That's okay. I'm going to give you a minute to reboot. We're going to take a quick pause for our sponsor. We'll be right back.
Are you curious about how your students are feeling? Despite our best efforts, it can be really hard to know how our young people are doing, especially now. WellCheck is here to help. WellCheck is a web-based app that allows students to complete a daily emotional check in less than 1 minute. Students are able to take an inventory of their emotional state and communicate important information to their teachers. WellCheck flags students who may be in need of a little extra TLC, so educators can proactively intervene before larger issues arise. The app allows schools to track individual and class level data daily as well as over time. To learn more about WellCheck, go to their website, www.wellcheq.com. You can also find them at Twitter at CheckWell. The goal of WellCheck is to give educators the information so they can help do the best for their students. We want to support all students.
Now back to the rally. So Bill, I'm sitting here thinking about how in the last 2 years, because of COVID, we've had a lot of remote learning. Have you been able to take education through imagination in a remote space? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard not to go right back to Friday, March 13th, 2020, a day that, of course, changed so much for all of us. As I was saying earlier, our field trip program is a major part of our business. And wow, overnight, many trips scheduled for the spring, of course, that's field trip season, just really evaporated. And like the rest of the world, we really had to ask ourselves, what are we going to do now? And so we spent the summer trying to figure out what is this distance learning that we keep hearing about, and how do we tap into that? And so I'm really happy to say that beginning, I suppose it would have been in the fall of 2020, we launched a virtual field trip and workshop program here at Education Through Imagination. And really what we did is take our in-person field trip, which includes a short history video telling the story of Garner Holt Productions, includes the factory tour, which is of course a big highlight, an animatronic show as part of that tour. And then students are coming back to our classroom space at Garner Holt Productions, and they're working with a hands-on activity that their teachers have selected beforehand. And each one of those hands-on activities, we call those our Animatronics Fundamentals. And each one of those activities emulates a different aspect of animatronic production. So focus might be on engineering and design. Another activity might focus on sculpting. Another activity focusing on electrical circuits. And so that's the experience. So students were able to see those careers in action and then come back and actually do something, it's very aligned to what they saw. In our virtual program, we are taking students on a virtual tour of our production factory, and following that virtual tour, we're facilitating the same hands-on activity. Only now we've sent them out ahead of time. Nowadays, now that most students are back in classrooms, we're sending them to the school sites. Teachers are distributing them before the virtual field trip. During the 2020-21 school year, we were sending them to the school sites in the same way, and they were being distributed typically through the grab and go. And so, what started out as this question of how are we going to survive has become something that we're very, very excited about, in particular, because we never dreamed really of working with students in this way who lived any further than 30 minutes from here. And so, to be able to interface with students really across the country has been very, very exciting. And I think the last thing I would say is that part of what we believe is working very well with our virtual experiences is that it's leveraging what's so great about distance learning, that we can all be in a different place and yet come together as a group. And at the same time, we're bridging that through a hands-on activity. So
That's
taking
the
advantage
key.
of the technology, but getting hands-on. And so, well, actually, I just have one more thing to add to that, which is that we've been able to, and Sarah can say a lot about this. In addition to experiences for kids, we've taken a lot of our PD virtual as well. And so again, from obstacle to opportunity, we're just really happy to be working in this virtual space. Okay, there is one more thing. Where we thought that the virtual programming might just be this this balm that we could put on ourselves to get through the pandemic has revealed itself to be something really powerful, and something that will last well beyond the end of the pandemic.
That's
So
cool.
Sarah, I want to ask you whether it's in that remote makerspace or if it's face-to-face makerspace or animakerspace. What are some tips? Because it seems like positive engagement is a key here and that you guys do it really well. So do you have some tips for us about what are some things that teachers could start doing right now to start building that positive engagement?
Yeah, I think there's a framework that we like to think of that's really simple, which is head, hands, and heart. And so if a student is using the cognitive function of their brain, their head, alongside the psychomotor, their hands, alongside the affective, their heart, then that's going to be a really powerful and possibly transformational learning experience. And so for educators to just use that as a lens into a lesson that they're planning, how could you try to access all three of those in your lesson? That's a really great way to start. So how can I get something in my kids' hands for them to think about or share their understanding of what they're thinking? And then how do I make it meaningful for them? How do I make sure that this is something that they're actually interested in? So tapping into students' passions and interests and talents is hugely important. And then putting something in their hands or giving them the opportunity to actually build some sort of artifact for sharing their understanding of whatever topic that they're learning is really important. And when I say sharing of an artifact, it can be a digital artifact. It can be something that is designed in Tinkercad or Scratch or something like that. But this idea of having students make something is really important, and it really can embody the beginning to end of learning and really documenting student learning.
Sarah won't brag about herself, but I will for just a moment. You know what? One of the things that I've really learned as an educator myself in joining this team and working alongside Sarah and her instructional team is the emphasis that they put on helping teachers let go of some of that control and that can be a really difficult thing to do. And I've just jotted a couple of notes down here, and something that I think Sarah does very well is help teachers trust the process a little bit more. This process of turning their students loose and trusting that they'll get there, and maybe getting there for each student looks a little bit different, but resisting the urge to save kids while they're in the midst of learning is something that I think Sarah and her team do very, very well. And as I mentioned, it's been a powerful influence on me also.
Well, just saying that, it kind of reminds me of a conversation we had with some other guests once before, because I see them at that other end once again. And I see the effects of the helping out too much. They get into these positions where you do want them to roam more freely, and they lock up. And so I spent a lot of my time with my freshman and my sophomore at the college level, trying to extract that from them, like trying to get them to break that mold. It's challenging. It's incredibly challenging. So yeah, I'm glad more people are talking about doing things this way, because it'll make my job, I'll probably be retired by then, but it'll make my job a lot easier by the time they get that level. And granted, it's not everybody, but it is, it's definitely noticeable. It's definitely noticeable.
Well, we encounter a lot of educators who instinctively look for the step-by-step directions as we get started doing something. And, there can be some cognitive dissonance that occurs when we let them know that, well, although there is, there are protocols and there's a rhythm and a scope and sequence to what we might do together, not everything is going to come with step-by-step directions. And so it's actually helping those teachers stretch beyond the limits of their comfort zone as educators that I think we're able to create the conditions for teachers to do that in a safe way.
That's cool.
So that's kind of making me think, Bill and team, tonight, how much are we preparing teachers to think innovatively, to, as Aaron says, often take risks, because they're taught the complete opposite, right? We're conditioned to not take risks, have control, and then you guys come along and it's like, what do you mean? Right? So I just, for those higher ed folks that design programs for teachers, I kind of think we need to start tapping into that area to start preparing the new teaching pool to think and move in this type of way and in this cadence.
Yeah.
Well, and to teach in that way that we're talking about, that can happen anywhere. What's exciting though about our Makerspace program is it gets to happen inside of an environment that just is so different from any other room on campus. And in fact, it's really our goal to create these spaces in a thematic way and a aesthetically pleasing way, so that when kids come in, they might actually wonder where they are, or they might ask themselves, could this space be for this? Couldn't it be for me? And the truth is, of course it is. And so it is kind of a stepping out of what is mostly normal when kids come into the makerspace. And so it definitely supports these conditions that we're talking about, where taking risks might become a little bit of a little bit safer to do, or a little bit more along the lines of what others are doing. So it's a contagion effect that can occur.
I love it.
And in a way, I feel like you're asking teachers too to take that leap into imagination. Imagine the possibilities of what your classroom could look like. Imagine what each individual student maybe could surprise you with. So I get excited too about that, because it's asking teachers to go back and tinker and have fun too in their profession, with their students and these types of things. So one thing that we've started doing this year, and I've really enjoyed it, we like to ask our guests, is there a teacher, mentor, coach, someone from growing up that you'd love to give a shout out to, or that you've kind of realized in looking back that they kind of put some kind of little S.P.A.R.K.E into you to be who you are. And Sarah, I'm going to let you go first if you've got someone you want to shout out, and tell us what it is. We like to hear like some modeling here.
Okay. I think I'm going to have to shout out, trying not, so let me preface this by saying that I'm not trying to win any kudos here, but I'm going to have to shout out my boss, my current boss, Ryan Rainbolt. He's the president of our company, and he was actually a first-year vice principal when I was a first-year teacher, and he was my first principal. And we've grown through education together. We've separated a couple times, come back together, and he recruited me to come join Education Through Imagination. And so he's still my boss, 15 years later. But really my first year of teaching was 2007. And it was the year that everyone was getting laid off. I got pink slipped every year for 4 or 5 years straight. And it was a weird time to come into teaching, but I think having that idea that, I might get laid off at the end of the year gave me that opportunity to take risks as well. And I knew that projects were the way to teach. I knew that I wanted to teach via projects, and Ryan supported me as well. And so I just want to shout him out, because if he wouldn't have been my principal that first year of teaching, I don't know if we'd still be working together today, because as my administrator, he supported me so much in wanting to teach in an interdisciplinary way with my students, and think a little bit outside of the box, and yes, trust that process, that when I teach in this way, the standards will get taught. I don't maybe know ahead of time what standards will get taught, but all the standards will get taught if you let me teach this way. And the students will have a better way to access how to actually apply those standards, because they're going to remember these learning experiences a little bit more deeply. And so shout out to Ryan as a first year principal for supporting me as a teacher, wanting to do things a little bit differently.
We love hearing that. School leaders are so important, and being able to take someone like you and make sure you felt supported and encourage you to take risks is just music to my ears. How about you, Bill?
Wow, what a fun question. Well, I think I would just tee this up by saying, and Aaron, as you mentioned in the beginning, part of my background is in school counseling, and school counseling is just some of the most special work I've ever done. Something that I continue to feel very connected to, and in fact, in this work at Education Through Imagination, I think a lot about the social emotional benefits of this work, in particular, helping students tell their stories. And sometimes those stories, and I don't just mean the deepest, darkest ones, but telling, becoming vulnerable enough to share of oneself. Sometimes that gets a lot easier with the help of a little robot. Mm-hmm. And so I think about that, and I also think about students' sense of personal agency. And I know as an adult that I still have that little voice way in the back of my mind sometimes that makes me question whether or not I'm good enough at whatever it is I might be doing. And so my shout out is to Dr. Michael Carter at California State University, Los Angeles, where I earned my counseling degree. And just what a powerful impact he had on me, as well as my peers, in helping us really like come down off of this graduate school like competition level, where we stopped competing with one another. We stopped feeling like, the objective was to sort of, I don't know, be the best in the class, and instead come together as a community and learn together and grow together. And so my shout outs for Dr. Michael Carter.
That's so great. This is probably my favorite time, I think, now of our podcast. I love hearing those stories. Thank you. So what we were going to do now is we like to kind of each say like a takeaway or some kind of thought that you provoked based on our conversation today. And then you as our guest kind of get the last word. So if there's one last thing that you just want to make sure that we hear from you, or if there's something an idea that came from you just from our conversation tonight, that's your opportunity. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Fred, let's go with you first tonight.
Awesome.
Surprise, surprise.
It's that last
buddy.
name A letter again, right? So there's two things actually. So I got to hear Garner Holt being interviewed by Lou Mangello on WDW Radio's podcast. And in that is the first time I heard the word animaker. And immediately it was towards the end of the conversation. I was working in my yard, toiling around, headsets on, and all of a sudden the whole conversation shifted towards what he was doing in education. And I got real excited. As a matter of fact, Aaron, I think I texted you and I was like, oh, this is Animaker Space.
I said, I've already got Bill on the line.
And I was like, that is fantastic. But that, for me, that word, I don't know what it is. You kind of encapsulated it before when you talked about how this is a very tactile evolution. You're tying in the hands, the heart, the head. I love that. That's the other thing I was going to say. But the thing is, like this whole notion and I've been doing this long enough, but this whole notion brings a whole new light to everything. I don't know obviously you get it because you're doing it, but I'm telling you right now, you are on a rock. You're going to get ready to go on a rocket ride. Because it's adding a whole new dimension that I think we needed it. Because, and I don't want to drag this out, but the one thing that I heard the other day, and I was kind of stamping my feet and getting antsy. Somebody said we've taken STEM and STEAM and STREAM too far now. And I said, too far, we didn't even get off the ground yet. And so I think you're going to be a needed kickstart. Not that it's dying, but it's definitely time for the second stage. And this could be a great start to that second stage of this. And I'm thinking of rockets in the background. But anyway, that what comes. And I just love animaker. It's a term that it just resonates with me. So
Cool. How about you, Letitia?
Totally still thinking about Holt's story and the inspiration and how he got this whole thing started. I love that. But I think one of my favorite lines from tonight is just how you all as a team went from obstacle to opportunity. I just thought that was excellent. You modeled the behavior, right? You took the risk, you looked at what you had and you designed something new. But I love this idea of obstacle to opportunity because as we all know, we all need to freshen our eyes with this pandemic. And so I love when I hear warm, fuzzy things like that. So thank you.
How about you, Pete?
Yeah, I was quiet because I was so into this conversation. Oh my gosh. Bill, you said at the very beginning, animatronics is a porthole to creativity and imagination. And those are my two favorite words. And it's just like, yes, so it's like, I go into schools and help them strengthen their arts programs, usually in a theatrical capacity, putting on a show, a production of some kind. And the first time when I meet the cast, I talk to them and I'm like, here is an activity that it can encapsulate every part of your life, every subject, every goal, everything you need to learn. And they don't believe me. I say, okay, test me. And I'll say, throw me out a subject, throw me out something you don't like learning right now, something that's hard for you right now, something your parents bugging you about, something you want to do for a job. And they just throw things like, we could do that in theater. You'll learn that here doing the show, this, that. Here is another example. The science and the art of animatronics it's a wonderful example that it truly covers everything. in the school day and beyond. And that's so exciting. And, anything that you need for a whole child, life enriching, life preparing, well-balanced education can be experienced through what you guys are offering. So keep it up. It's so exciting. And I'm really cheering for you guys.
Yeah, that's great, Pete. And it's interesting because Fred brought it up. You did, Pete, too, that the head, hands, and heart, this whole child thing. Last week, our guest brought that up too with the STED school. So, I think especially with this pandemic, people want to get their hands dirty. They want to tinker. They want to, really fulfill their passion. They look for, what makes their heart happy, what kind of helps them in their head to feel happiness or feel joy in what they're doing. And so I wrote down this idea of changing the narrative of the future. And I think, Bill, you kind of brought that up because I'm thinking of me as a child, and I was all about imagination. I probably had over imagination, right? In so many ways. But I was that kid that drew all the time. I wrote stories, all the time. I'm even thinking about Wonder Woman. I was really into Wonder Woman. And so I took aluminum foil and made my cuffs out of that, and there's just something about going back to that innocence, that imagination, and everything in life, there's all these possibilities. And so I'm excited to hear what you all are doing, and especially in supporting teachers and helping them to be able to do that and see that possibility for kids. So thank you. Bill, how about you? I'll let you get your final word in, and then Sarah, you'll be the last one.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Well, let's see. I come from a long line of educators, proudly from a long line of educators and public servants. And, this idea of entrepreneurship was never something that I personally thought about very much. And so coming to Garner Holt Education Through Imagination, learning Garner's story and although we think he's a special guy, he'd of course be the first one to say he's no more special than anyone else, but he really is this kind of quintessential entrepreneur. And so to be able to share his story with kids and to help them to reinforce for them that their dreams are actually not too big, and they're actually not too crazy, and that their desire to be their own boss and create their own thing, it is actually something they can do, has really had a significant impact in my life. And the truth of the matter is that we might need to add a second E to STEAM, because entrepreneurship is absolutely something that should be encouraged and should be promoted, whether it's through an makerspace or anywhere else on a school campus, because I think there are a lot of kids out there that are not served very well through the traditional school model. And if we could just really encourage them to follow their dreams, give them a format and a venue to experiment with developing that product that they've dreamt about their whole life, I just think we're again going to be engaging students at much higher and higher levels.
I like that. I like that a lot.
How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, well, I'd like to end by saying thank you to all of you for allowing us the opportunity to share some of our work with you. Education is our passion. Animatronics is Garner's passion, but education is ours over here. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to share a little bit of our passion. And, along the lines of animatronics, to me as an educator, the thing that stands out the most about animatronics is the idea of powerful storytelling. And I think that educators are the ones who hold the key to being able to change that narrative by telling the stories of the awesome things that are happening in their classrooms. So I just want to thank you guys so much for having this platform so that educators can share stories of how it's possible to transform students' lives through thinking innovatively about our work. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming and
That was
celebrating
awesome.
that with us. That's great. And Bill, do you want to tell us where our listeners can reach out to you and Sarah over there at Garner Holt's Education Through Imagination?
Yeah, absolutely, Erin. Thank you. I think the easiest way would be to contact us through our webpage, through our website, educationthroughimagination.com. And there are contact links that can be easily found on each page of the website. And it's something that we pay close attention to, and it's actually the way that we've been able to meet meet a lot of new people. And so again, that's Garner Holt, educationthroughimagination.com, and reach out to us through one of the contact links.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, we're so happy that you came here. Pete, can you tell us where our listeners can find us?
That's what I was doing. My brain shut down. I had to look up our phone number.
I got you, man. I got you. No worries.
I forgot. So, hey, teacherpeprally.com. Check us out. We're on Facebook, YouTube, whatever platform you're listening to us tonight. Please subscribe, leave us a review. And then our hotline, 678-439-TPR1. We'd love to hear from you.
And I would definitely say, I'm hearing from a lot of teachers, they're tired, they need a little pep. So, call our number, 678-439-TPR1. Leave us a cheerful message. Let's rally and get through the end of this year. We can do it, guys. Yep. I'd appreciate it. And again, let us know what you think about Bill and Sarah and S.P.A.R.K.E and how you're going to start making sure you've got maker spaces and opportunities for your kids to use their imagination. So thanks again, Bill and Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you.